Brian has achieved great success, and he's one of a very exclusive club in the world of hockey, in that there's not that many people who run hockey teams, and he's one of them. Brian is also part of a club that he would much rather not be part of, and that was, as many of you know, in 2010, the same year that he was general manager for the United States men's hockey team. His son Brendan was killed in an automobile accident just months after coming out to the world and to the public that he was gay. And inspired by Brendan's courage and Brendan's soul, he has made the rights of the lesbian, gay community his fire. And and so I couldn't be more proud or more excited to introduce Mr. Brian Burke. Come on out here, Brian. Thanks, my friend. Good to have you here. Come have a seat. Would you like a beer? Because Jim can bring you a beer if you'd like one.
No thanks.
You're good. So, first of all, how about the choir? Aren't they something?
Can I go first next time we do this? Like, Dave was way more interesting than I'm going to be. Manny was way more interesting. Then you bring out the goddamn choir. Can I want to go first next time.
Done. Here's the thing. So a lot of people, when they knew you were coming, said, oh, you got to ask about hockey. They have all these hockey questions. Other people said, oh, I really want to know about the Pride Parade, but also the mission he's taken on. That's really important. But everybody, didn't matter what side they said, can you ask him about his tie? I really want to know about the tie. So they want to know about the tie. Can you tell people about it?
Yeah, it's a tie.
Interesting.
I'm lazy. I know how to tie it. I started years ago going to the rink like this and then tying it right before the anthem when the game would start. And then I forgot to tie it a couple times, and we actually won, which in Toronto we didn't do enough of. And so then if you win a game, you're not going to change anything for the next game. So it's like during the playoffs, you'd see guys who wear the same suit until we lost, same cufflinks. I mean, so I didn't tie it the next time, and then someone spotted on camera. And someone asked me once, were you trying to make a fashion statement? And I said, I'm not smart enough to do that. Like, I'm just lazy, so that's all it is.
Because I remember a story saying, well, in Toronto, that you have to wear a tie, so you got told you had to wear a tie, and you thought, well, screw you, I won't tie it then, and all of that.
I've never taken instructions on apparel from ownership.
Other things maybe, not that.
Yes.
So we'll talk about sort of the business world you live in, but was there a point, like for Blythe and I, watching those games in the playoff run, was there a point for you as a fan where you went, holy shit, they could do this?
Well, I thought we would beat Vancouver. I really did. I thought had we not played without our captain the last month, we would have finished ahead of them and had home ice. I thought we could beat them, and we did. I knew we were in deep trouble against Anaheim, and they were too much bigger, too much faster. I don't think we won a face-off. When they were on the power play, I actually said to our GM, I said, ask the linesman to put a second puck on the ice so we can touch it. So I knew we were in trouble. It's one of those things where, you know, when you're a kid, you're walking down the street and here comes the bully, and you know you're going to have to fight him, and it's not going to be fun. And so it was ugly.
Well, Mike, the producer of the show, who people met earlier, he said, can you just ask Brian, why is it we can't beat the Ducks? What is it about the Ducks? Not just in the playoffs, we just can't seem to beat them.
Well, we can't win in that building. We can beat the Ducks. We beat them this year. We just can't win in that building, and that's historical. I'm not big on that kind of garbage. We'll get them next year in there.
Are you... So that people know, and I know you've had to explain it to some folks, but explain what what your role is, as opposed to what you did as a general manager.
That's a really good question. This structure in pro sports is relatively new, and there's only a handful of teams that have it. Like, there's like 6 teams in the NBA. I think we have 6 teams. There's maybe half dozen in the NFL and so on. But I think every team will have this structure within the next 10 years. And what this does is it allows you to like rookie GMs make big mistakes. This allows you to hire a younger guy, kind of mentor him. What I do with Brad Treliving, who I think is a brilliant young guy, I think people in Calgary are going to really come to love him. What I do for him is provide guidance, sit in on a lot of the meetings that we had, like we had our pro scouting meetings today, last couple days. We've had our amateur meetings, get ready for the draft, just to guide and mentor him. I do a lot of the corporate support, so we've got season ticket holder meetings. I'll go and talk about the team. We have suite renewals. I'll take that person out to lunch. So a lot of the corporate support that I had to do as a GM, he doesn't have to do that now. He can just worry about putting the best 20 players on the ice.
Tell me about Hartley, the coach. And it's in this run, he just seemed like he had this amazing ability to motivate and inspire. What's his secret sauce?
I think with Bob, I think you have to have a philosophy as a GM on what kind of coach you want. I didn't hire Bob. I wish I could take credit for hiring Bob, but I didn't hire Bob. And in fact, when I came here, I suspected I might have to make a change. I didn't know him that well. And his hair is always perfect. And his clothes are nice. And he dresses way better than I do. And I thought, I'm going to have to get rid of him. But then I saw I want hard coaches. Like the game of hockey was never meant to be fun. When you're a kid, it is. But you're playing pro hockey. The word fun does not appear in the standard player's contract. Trust me, I'm a lawyer. It does not appear. The fun comes from winning. So you look at the coaches I've had, Randy Carlisle. I hired Paul Holmgren way back when, Mark Crawford, hard coaches, push the players. But I want a positive teaching environment the rest of the time. Like, we're so negative during games. 95% of the commentary is negative. You come to the bench, the coach can't hug you and say, great shift. He says, stay inside the goddamn dots, you imbecile. That's the talk. So I want a positive teaching environment when we're not at practice, and we're not in the weight room, and we're not on the ice. And Bob's really good at that. He's a natural teacher. And
is there, for you, is there any difference? So now that you're more in the business side of things, so you end up working with ushers, not like individually, but that's all part of the game, is what happens when people walk in. Is there a difference between motivating an usher, motivating a salesperson, and motivating Giordano? Well, when you're a GM, you're not day-to-day with the team anyway. Like you see the players every day, like I do. My time to interact with the players is when they come to practice. So I'm downstairs, I have a coffee. How's the baby? How's your wife doing? Heard your brother was sick, how's he doing? That's our interaction with the players, where we tell them we love them, that we care about them. Because the rest of the time, we're going to try to trade them and ruin their lives. But the actual motivation of the team, the speeches to the team and everything, that's really the coach's job. And I spoke to the team twice this year, once during training camp and once on that last critical road trip in Nashville. I called a team meeting and talked to the team and told them how proud I was of them. And how important is that for them to hear that from you? I think I played pro hockey. If you'd had a better introduction, people would know that. But I was a minor leaguer. I wasn't any good. I played 1 year and I went back to school. But I think praise from management or coaches, because so much of the commentary is negative. And we won a Calder Cup. Our team won a championship in the American League. But so much of the feedback, by necessity, is negative. I think kind words are appreciated by athletes. I really do. I think that it goes a long way. And I think too, like, it's interesting, the world of sport, and I mean it when I meant it when I was talking about its story. It is life encapsulated, right? It's everything in it. But the thing that's also hard about it is if there's 30 teams, there's only one team that gets a good story. All the other 29 didn't make it. So it's a hard world to live in. It's real hard math. And I remember when I was the GM in Toronto, Alex Anthopoulos came to see me, the GM of the Jays. Great guy, great young man. And he came to my office and he slumped into a chair and he says, "When does the goddamn fun start?" And I said, "Who told you there was any fun in this town? There's one team every year that has fun." And I remember waking up the morning after we won the Stanley Cup, and our goalie was an unrestricted free agent, J.S. Shiger. And so we just won the Cup. Next morning, I should be sleeping in. I should be getting breakfast in bed. And I called his agent. I said, "I'm on a plane tomorrow. I'm going to come and sign this kid." So it doesn't let up even when you win. But there's only one GM or coach or group of players that has a fun time. Can you tell right off I mean, obviously you can't always, but what is it that you think makes a great athlete a great athlete?
Well, a great athlete, you're talking about a tiny percentage of athletes. There's so much hyperbole and overuse of adjectives in pro sports. Like you'll hear a broadcaster say, that was a great play. Well, it wasn't a great play. You might see 3 great plays in a game. You'll see a bunch of good plays. Truly great players. It's funny you mentioned, I did a charity event on Monday night in Toronto with Wayne Gretzky. And I remember explaining to somebody, I think those really elite guys could play any sport. I think if Wayne Gretzky had picked up a baseball bat, he would have been a Hall of Fame baseball player. Michael Jordan, if he was a football player, would have been a star. So those guys, they're easy to pick out. Like you go to a junior game, Sidney Crosby is easy to pick out. The harder thing is to find guys that either can contribute in other ways on your team or that will improve as players. We draft 18-year-olds. Those kids get better. A great athlete to me starts with the basic makeup of the team comes first, great athletic ability, great work ethic, and then he needs some luck and some coaching to get there.
I was talking to Dave Dickinson from the Stampeders last show about this.
He's a good guy.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
And he was saying that it's not imperative, but it sometimes helps if they got a bit of a chip on their shoulder.
Yep, I agree with that.
You buy that?
And we want, in hockey, you want a little bit of a gunslinger's mentality for your goal scorers, where a guy says, I want the puck. You could see it with Corey Perry in our series. He wanted the puck. A little bit like, I want that puck. I want to be the guy that makes the difference in the game. And sometimes having a chip does help with that.
What about Gaudreau? When I watch, and I think I associate you with big and tough and hard and all that, but I also associate you with the Sedin twins because they were a big part of your career in Vancouver. And now with Johnny Gaudreau, like there are people that are in that world that aren't that same sort of what you would picture anyway. Gaudreau's not the big, rough, tough guy.
No, but there's a misconception that my teams are these big, ugly teams. They are, but there's 20 guys on a hockey team, and so my teams tend to be the top 6 forwards, top 4 defensemen are skill-oriented special teams. That's where your power play units are. That's where your team speed is. Bottom 6 are North American guys that bring work boots, and my teams are. This is not a classic Brian Burke team. We need to get bigger and uglier, and we will. I think we started this arms race in the West in Anaheim. So I'll take some of the blame for it, but the thing that leaped out at you in the series against Anaheim was there were several deficiencies we had, but the thing that leaped out at you if you're a fan was, good Lord, are we small?
Yeah.
And we have a small defense. They're skilled. They're wonderful. I love our defense, but they're small. You can have a Johnny Gaudreau on your team. You can have a Zuccarello on your team, but you better have some big boys around them. And so we need to get bigger. It doesn't mean that Johnny can't play on our team. It doesn't mean Yuri Hudler can't play on our team. But you need to have, and it's easier to find beef than it is to find skill.
It is.
It's much easier to find Brian Burks than really good players.
I'm sure this was a big deal because you follow hockey. In Bantam C, I scored a goal. So.
Really, I'm really.
I mean, it was just the one, and it was a backhand, and I remember it was a backhand because it was the only way I could raise the puck. So, that's serious.
That was about as useful as the safety announcement. Which was wretched.
Okay. And I want to turn a corner now, and I want to do it because this is the Pride Parade's coming up, and you're the Grand Marshal. This is something that a cause you've taken to your heart, and tell us a bit about the You Can Play project and some of that work you're doing.
Well, when my son was the student manager of the college hockey team at Miami University in Ohio, and he decided he wanted to come out, and I said, well, no, you're part of a team, and if that would be distracting to the team, you wait till after the season, talk to the coach. The coach there is a great guy. He said, no, if you want to come out, that's great for us, we'd be proud. So he came out in the fall, and it wasn't a big deal in our house. It was, I agree. And the best part about it was that I said to Brendan, he said, Dad, I'm gay, and I said, okay. I said, it doesn't change anything in my mind. You've given us a million reasons to love you, and this doesn't change that. I said, the best part is, I don't have to take anything back. We didn't allow homophobic commentary in our house. We don't allow racial humor. It was a home full of acceptance. So I didn't have to build this bridge back up. And I get letters from parents and kids where the parents are trying to reach back to their child who's gay and has told them that. But they've said things and done things that are harmful, and it's really hard to repair that and rebuild that bridge. So Patrick, my son, who works for the NHL in New York now, and he's pretty funny on Twitter. If you want to follow him on Twitter, he drives me nuts, but he makes fun of me all the time. My hair, like we had a goal disallowed, that goal that went in, and the league said it didn't. Not that I'm bitter about it.
No. Hardly even remember it.
So I hammered on the table. I was so mad, and he posted it, he tweeted or Twittered or whatever you do, that here's what my dad does when we bring home a bad report card. He started You Can Play, and You Can Play was a message. We don't have this issue with female athletes. Female team athletes are accepted right through high school and college. It's not an issue. But with male athletes, the gay athletes are subjected to a lot of taunting, a lot of homophobic remarks. And so the message was, if you can play, you can play. So HBO shot the series, the first series of PSAs. They're really tight headshots, and they're not keyed. It doesn't say I'm Zdeno Chara. We assume people know who these athletes are. And it is, if you can pass, you can pass. If you can shoot, you can shoot. If you can play, you can play. And it's designed to encourage gay men to stay with team sports through high school. My son did not play his last year of high school because of the homophobic nature of the dressing room. He wasn't comfortable. He played for a town team that year. So it's a really cool project. I do a lot of work with Canadian Safe School Network here in Canada. And they do wonderful work on lots of safety in schools for students, but the LGBTQ part of it's what makes it important to me.
I was talking to a couple of us before, when we knew you were coming, and said the campaign is it'll be important when there's a pro athlete. It will be, but it's really not for the pro sports. It's for the kids, because they're kids in high school. And we were saying that when you thought back about our high school times, if there was a bully out there or a group of kids that tended to pick on the other kids, it typically wasn't the theater kids doing it, and it quite often wasn't the volleyball team doing it. But the chances of it having a hockey player or two on the group was higher. The hockey world, and I think there's that piece of it that says, you want to be tough, you want to be competitive, you want to be hard, you want to take pain, you got to be able to go. And how does acceptance fit into that world?
Well, there's nothing tough about being a bully. It's the most cowardly act that there is. The A-list kids don't bully, as a rule. My experience in high school was not. I was a football player, hockey player. I was A-list. I dated a cheerleader, the whole thing. She was A-list. Really A-list. We didn't need the status that you try to acquire by being a bully. It's the study. You read the studies on bullying. It's the B-list people that crave A-list status, and it's despicable and cowardly, and it's got to stop. And that, to me, is a kid should never be nervous about getting on a school bus or changing in a high school dressing room to go out for gym. And this is where the LGBTQ kids are most vulnerable. And just imagine being terrified to go to school. Like, it's got to be the worst thing in the world. It's got to stop.
Yeah. I have So as you heard, my son is 4 and my daughter is 2. And if they get into sports, and I hope they do, there's a lot you can learn, and the team sports are a great way to learn a lot of things. How would you say, how do I help him understand the difference between playing tough, being that world that you need to in a sport, but then not taking that into other places?
Well, to me, first off, with youth hockey, there's no hitting until they get now up to Bantam. So you don't have to give them that speech for another 10 years.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah. No, really, there's no body checking allowed till Bantam now. We're losing too many kids in the Pee-wee level. The size differential on the kids is so big that we had all these kids quitting hockey at 12. I don't want to get run over by a guy twice my size. Well, guess what? It's pretty sensible. So we raised the hitting age to, this is something they did in the States probably 8 years ago, and in Canada maybe 5 years ago. So you don't have to have that talk. And then when it comes to that point, it's like the notion that because you're a ferocious hockey player, first off, only a small percentage of guys really play that game. But the notion that you can't separate those things, that you can't be a loving father or a good son or a good brother because you play hockey and you happen to, the nicest guys that play our game are the toughest guys that play our game. And they are so gentle, like Brian McGrattan off the ice, the gentle giant, the guy that you couldn't get Brian McGrattan to fight off the ice if you tried. You'd need to hit him with a stick 10 times. On the ice, drop of a hat. So it's really, to me, there was never that, both my boys played hockey. I never had to have that speech with them. It's like, you're going to respect women in your life. You're never going to engage in any level of violence against women. You're not going to get in fights outside the rink. If the fight happens on the ice, it happens on the ice. But you're going to act a certain way off the ice. There's no conflict there. The beauty of kids playing hockey is it's the world's hardest sport to play. And someone will say, oh, what about this sport and that sport? That's garbage. The hardest sport in the world to play is hockey, and it needs the biggest support system.
Why is it the hardest sport, would you say?
Oh, because the athletic ability that you need to play, you do all, so take a football player, baseball player, basketball player. Everything they do, they hold the object of the game in their hand, and they're doing it in shoes. We remove the object of the game with a stick, and we put skates on. You can win a gold medal in the Olympic in 2 disciplines for skating alone, and we expect our players to do it as a matter of course. And then you make it full contact, so you can't just be good at it, you got to be fearless too. It's the hardest sport in the world to play, and the most support system. You and your buddy can go play catch. You can go to a basketball court at any elementary school in Canada and shoot baskets. You can throw a football around. You need ice and equipment and officials and the whole thing to play hockey. We have a huge hill to climb to get kids to keep playing, but if your kid plays, he or she will be in the greatest fraternity in sports.
That's incredible. Thank you. I have 2 more questions. I know when you talk about your work on the show business, that you're also aware that the business side of hockey has to have a show, and you've always said it's got to be entertaining. If it's not entertaining, it's not. What is that about for you?
Well, I was a rookie GM in 1992. I was 37 years old, and I was hired to run the Hartford Whalers, and you can see where I got them. They're in Carolina now. But I said, am I going to do this like everybody else and just follow the leader, or am I going to do it my way? And so I came up with 3 pillars, and my 3 pillars are, and they're very much in evidence every city I've worked. One is we're going to be an entertaining team. We're in the entertainment business. We're not going to win every night. We want to entertain you. So my teams trade chances. We don't trap. We fight. We hit. We try and make it entertaining for you. Second is I run it like a business. I've worked for teams that made money. I've worked for teams that lost money. We won a Stanley Cup in Anaheim and lost $8 million. I've worked for teams that made a ton of money, but I've always run it the same way because our fans, our people that invest in the business and buy tickets, they have to have confidence that the money they're spending is being spent wisely. And third is community service. My teams are going to make a difference in the communities where they play, or they go somewhere else. I can tell the players, you don't have to do this, but if you don't do it, you won't be here. Like, I don't care. So, amazingly, after that speech, we get great compliance with our programs. But you look, everyone in this room, how many people would play for the Calgary Flames for nothing if they got a chance? Me? Yeah, all of us. We pay these guys millions of dollars because they have a God-given gift. They can give back.
This is a question I ask a lot of dads because it's amazing what people will think of. But I'm a dad of 2 kids, and your kids are older than mine are now. So when you look back, if I were to steal something from you, what would you say? You know what, I'm glad I did. This is the thing. If you remember one thing about being a dad, do this.
I'll tell you 2 things. And I was told this by Lou Lamoriello, who was my coach. I played for Lou for 4 years. Again, you people would know that if the introduction had been more elaborate. And when I had my first kid, Katie, my oldest daughter, Lou said, you want some advice on having kids? I said, yeah, I do. I'm kind of new at this. And he said, 1, don't talk to them like babies. So we used adult sentence structure and language and vocabulary from day 1. So your kids have a better vocabulary right out of the gate. So they don't, do you want a cookie? No, it's, would you like a cookie? Yeah. And then second, I read to them every night. I still do with my 9 and 11-year-old. I read to them when they go to bed every night.
Is Stacy here? I thought only Stacy from Calgary Reads would have got really excited by that last one.
Yeah.
So there you go, Stacy. That's for you.
And all my kids, all 6 of them, I've got 5 left now, but all of them could read and write before they got to kindergarten. That's how we taught in our house.
Two great pieces of advice. It's just amazing, and I know part of what you do is to come to things like this and hang out with us, and I'm so appreciative that you have. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Now, amazing.